Well, it's hidden in plain sight for a lot of us. You know the stories, right? The Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, the sower and the seed. They're really part of our cultural backdrop, familiar even if, maybe you haven't spent much time with the source text. We often just think of them as simple moral lessons, straightforward stories, easy to digest. But here's the question, the one people don't often stop to ask. Why? Why did Jesus actually speak in parables in the first place? Why wrap things up in these, narrative riddles? If the goal was just clarity for everyone, wouldn't direct statements have worked better? Was it just poetry, a memory trick? Or, and this is where we're really going to dive deep today, was there a much more intentional, maybe even protective reason? Was he sort of veiling truths that weren't meant for just anybody? So our mission today is to peel back that veil. We're going to explore a hidden truth about these parables that might just change how you read them, and maybe even how you think about deep knowledge itself.
It's a great question. It really is captivating, isn't it? And like you said, it's often missed because the stories feel so accessible, on the surface. We tend to see them as these beautifully simple analogies, making spiritual stuff easy for everyone. That's the common take, right? Charming moral fables. But the why behind them, as our sources really dig into, it seems to be far richer, way more complex, and honestly, it kind of challenges our modern assumptions about communication. Understanding why he chose parables, it's not just academic. It totally reframes how you approach these stories, and maybe even how truth itself is revealed. Get ready for some real aha moments. I think it could shift your perspective quite a bit.
Okay, so to really get into this mystery, let's go right to the source, Matthew 13. There's this key moment, and it shows that even Jesus' own followers, the people closest to him, were a bit puzzled by his teaching style. It happens right after he tells the parable of the sower, which, seems pretty clear on the surface, right? Explaining why different people react differently to his message. But then, Matthew 13, verse 10, his own disciples come up to him, the inner circle, and they ask him, straight up, why do you speak to the people in parables? Just pause on that for a second. Think about who's asking. It's not some random person in the crowd. It's the guys who are with him day in, day out. They hear everything. They see everything. If they're confused, if they don't quite get the strategy, well, that tells you something significant is going on, doesn't it? It tells you this isn't just about simple storytelling. There's a deeper layer. It kind of sets you up for Jesus' answer, because you realize it must challenge that basic idea that truth should always be, super clear and easy for everyone. It's almost like they were saying, look, teacher, the stories are nice, but why not just cut to the chase? Be direct.
Exactly. And his answer, what we find in Matthew 13, verses 11 through 13, well, it really does challenge that traditional view. It's not gentle. It's not what you might expect if the goal was just universal clarity. It's actually quite startling, he says, quite directly, because the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. And then he adds, this is why I speak to them in parables. Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand.
Wow. Okay, so he's saying it point blank.
He is. Our sources really emphasize this point. Jesus intentionally used stories in a way that meant some people would not grasp the deeper meaning. That just flies in the face of the common idea that parables were, simplification tools for easy universal understanding.
Well, opposite almost.
It suggests a very deliberate differentiation. Purposefully obscuring for some while revealing to others. It's complex, and the implication is huge. It wasn't arbitrary, like he just wanted to be difficult or create some kind of exclusive club. No, the sources suggest he was, and this is a key phrase, protecting it from hardened hearts.
Hardened hearts. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Is it just about people being bad, or?
Well, it's not always about deliberate malice, though it can be. More often, it seems to point to a state of being spiritually or intellectually unready. A kind of resistance, maybe even an unwillingness to truly engage with something deep or challenging. Think about that other saying, about not casting pearls before swine. Mm-hmm. If you give something precious, something transformative, to someone whose heart is closed off, resistant, maybe just unprepared, well, it might not just be ignored. It could be twisted, rejected, maybe even used wrongly. So it suggests this divine discernment in how truth is shared. It's not just about the delivery. It's about the reception, about the readiness of the person hearing it.
That really pushes against our modern idea that all information should just be blasted out there, instantly clear for everyone.
It absolutely does. And think about the parable of the sower itself, the one that sparked the disciples' question. Jesus lays out 4 types of soil, remember?
Yeah, the path, the rocks, the thorns, the good soil.
Exactly. And those aren't just random examples. They're metaphors for the state of the human heart, for different levels of receptivity. The seed, the message, it's the same for everyone, but the outcome, totally different depending on the soil. The path, Hardened, resistant, the message gets snatched away instantly. Rocky ground. Enthusiastic at first, but no depth, so it fails under pressure. Thorny ground. Hears it, but life's worries, desires, they just choke it out.
Only the good soil works.
Only the good soil, the prepared, receptive heart, actually hears, understands, and bears fruit. So that parable itself illustrates this hardened heart principle. It shows why just laying out the truth directly wouldn't work for everyone. It's less about exclusion and more about acknowledging reality, the reality of human readiness, and protecting deep truths from being, trampled on by those not prepared for them.
That makes sense. You see that even today, right? With complex ideas, scientific breakthroughs, whatever. Some people just aren't ready or willing to engage, so the full meaning is lost on them.
Precisely. It's not always about deliberate exclusion, but about appropriate revelation. Giving someone information they're fundamentally unprepared to process might actually do more harm than good.
So if he was intentionally speaking so some wouldn't get it, then these parables are doing a lot more work than just telling a story. Our sources really light this up, describing them not just as stories, but as active filters. That's the word they use, filters. It's not just a metaphor, it's like their job description. They aren't just sitting there passively, they're actively sorting people out.
Sorting them? How so?
Well, think about a complex riddle, or maybe one of those intricate puzzle boxes. If you just glance at it, uninterested, thinking, too hard, you'll never open it, right? You just move on.
Yeah, true.
But if you're curious, if you feel that pull, that desire to figure it out, you lean in, you wrestle with it, you try different things.
You engage.
Exactly, you engage. And the parables work like that. The sources say they divide the curious from the careless, the hungry from the hardened, the surrendered from the stubborn. It's like they detect your disposition. If you're passive, just waiting for easy answers, the parable stays kind of flat. A nice story maybe, but the deep stuff stays hidden.
But if you're genuinely hungry for it,
then you lean in, you ask questions, you chew on it, you surrender your assumptions, and then it starts to open up. It demands you play an active role. You move from just listening to actually seeking.
So the listening itself becomes a kind of test.
Yeah, a test of your readiness, your hunger, your heart's condition, really. It reveals the listener as much as it reveals the message.
And that whole idea, parables as a test, a filter, it gets even stronger when you look at Mark chapter 4, verses 33 and 34. Mark explicitly tells us that Jesus only explained the meaning of his parables to his disciples when they were alone, in private.
Only in private. Okay, that's huge.
It is. If the goal was just simple, universal clarity for everyone, why hold back the explanations? Why the private tutoring sessions for the inner circle?
It wasn't just favoritism then.
No, it seems to be about validating the effort, rewarding the hunger. Those who leaned in, like the disciples who asked why parables in the first place, who stuck around, who sought clarification, they got the deeper revelation.
So God reveals more to those who lean in. Is that the principle?
That seems to be exactly it. It sets up this dynamic. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened. The parable goes out publicly, like this intriguing puzzle. For those who feel that pull, who are curious enough, humble enough to admit they don't get it, and persistent enough to ask for more, understanding gets unlocked.
So the parable draws in the humble seekers.
Right, like a magnet for the hungry heart. But at the same time, it kind of, repels the prideful, those who think they already know it all, or who just aren't willing to put in the mental or spiritual effort.
For them, it just stays a simple story, maybe even irrelevant, allows them to walk away unchallenged.
Exactly, and that really makes you think about learning in general, doesn't it? How much does our own attitude, our humility, our curiosity, our willingness to really wrestle with stuff determine what we actually understand?
Yeah, definitely. Leaning in isn't just passive consumption. It's asking the tough questions, being open to changing your mind.
It suggests that real knowledge, depth understanding, isn't just handed over. It's often discovered through that active, engaged pursuit. Your own receptivity is key.
Okay, so if we put all this together, what does it really mean for how we understand Jesus and his message? It feels like we've maybe been missing a huge part of the picture. We tend to boil these parables down to just, basic moral lessons. Good Samaritan, be nice. Prodigal son, God forgives. Which, okay, those are in there.
But there's so much more than that.
Exactly. They're dramatically reduced versions. Our sources argue pretty strongly that Jesus used parables primarily to reveal kingdom principles. That's a much bigger, more profound purpose than just basic ethics.
Kingdom principles.
Yeah, and that feels like a real aha moment.
Huh.
The parables aren't just about how to live a good life. They're about how the kingdom of God actually works, how reality operates from God's perspective. It's less like a simple rule book and more like, the operating system manual for the spiritual universe, the hidden blueprints.
That's a great way to put it. They're describing fundamental spiritual laws, the dynamics of God's interaction with the world, what's required to even participate in his reality.
It shifts the focus from just human behavior to these grand, cosmic, divine workings.
It really does. And this raises that important question.
Right.
Okay, if they reveal these kingdom principles, what does that actually look like? How do these simple seeming stories do that? Our sources give some great examples.
Yeah, let's get concrete.
Okay, let's start with the parable of the mustard seed. Smallest seed grows into a big bush. Easy to see it as just, big things from small beginnings. Faith grows, that kind of thing.
Right, that's the usual take.
But through the kingdom principle lens, it's showing how the kingdom itself starts. Invisibly small, easily dismissed, maybe, but it has this inherent, unstoppable, exponential power to grow.
So it's not just about my faith growing.
It's about the nature of God's influence in the world. It doesn't crash in with overwhelming force. It starts tiny, almost unnoticed, like that seed, but it has this built-in life force that makes it expand beyond all expectation, eventually providing shelter, sustenance. It's describing a fundamental pattern of divine activity, how God's transformation works.
Okay, I see. It's about the system, not just the individual part. What about another one?
How about the parable of the hidden treasure? Guy finds treasure, sells everything, buys the field. Again, the simple take is value what's important, prioritize wisely. But the kingdom principle here is much more radical. It's revealing that the kingdom itself is of such supreme, unparalleled worth that it's literally worth losing everything else for. Everything. It's not just a lesson in good values. It's saying the discovery of God's kingdom demands and inspires a total, joyful reordering of your entire life and all its priorities. You willingly let go of all other assets, not because they're worthless, but because the kingdom's value is so infinitely greater that any sacrifice feels like an incredible bargain. It's about the absolute supremacy of God's rule and presence.
Wow, that definitely goes beyond just prioritize well. Okay, one more.
Let's look at the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 wise, 5 foolish. The common lesson is be prepared, don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, seems straightforward.
But the kingdom principle is sharper, maybe even a bit unsettling. It warns that not everyone who looks ready will actually enter in.
Oof, okay.
It's digging into that difference between just outward appearance or association, of genuine internal readiness. The foolish virgins, they looked the part, they were in the right place, but they lacked the essential inner resource, the oil. That symbolizes maybe true spiritual vitality, diligence, a real connection, not just showing up.
So just looking like you belong isn't enough.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder that entry into the kingdom requires authentic, personal preparedness, a depth that goes way beyond just the superficial. It's about a non-negotiable, ongoing inner state.
These are definitely not just simple bedtime stories.
Not at all. And think about how this connects back to that verse in Matthew 13.35, where Jesus quotes the Old Testament saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things hidden since the creation of the world.
Hidden since creation?
Yeah, that's huge, right? It tells you he wasn't watering things down, he was doing the opposite. He was unveiling profound, eternal mysteries, things woven into the fabric of reality from the very beginning, but unveiling them specifically to those with eyes to see.
Eyes to see, so it's not just about intellect.
It seems to be more than that. Intellect plays a role, sure, but it's also spiritual insight, heart receptivity, a willingness to look past the surface story, to grasp the deeper foundational truths about God's reality that the narrative points towards. It's about discerning those hidden patterns.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. The deepest layer. Why parables, really? It's clear now it wasn't just about passing on information, like facts in a lecture.
Right, information just adds to what you know.
But Jesus was after something more, wasn't he? Our sources suggest he was extending an invitation into transformation.
Transformation, that's a key difference.
It really is. Information changes your knowledge base. Transformation changes you. Your perspective, your core being.
And the way he taught using parables seems designed for that.
Exactly. Because parables, they aren't instant downloads. They demand effort, don't they?
Yeah.
You have to reflect. You can't just hear one passively and get the full impact.
No, you have to engage, wrestle with it.
You have to lean in, chew on it, consider its angles, its uncomfortable bits, how it hits your life. And that active engagement, that wrestling, that's what builds intimacy, isn't it?
Intimacy with the truth itself.
Yeah. It moves you from just receiving information to actively participating, from intellectual agreement to personal investment. When you really grapple with a parable, it stops being just a story out there. It becomes a mirror, a challenge, an invitation to look inside.
That kind of active pursuit fosters a much deeper connection, one that can actually lead to change.
You move from being a spectator to being a participant in your own growth.
And this reframing, it sheds new light on that passage we talked about earlier, Luke 8:10. To you it has been given to know the secrets, but to others I speak in parables, so that seeing they may not see, and hearing they may not understand. It still sounds pretty exclusive on the surface, right? Like he's deliberately blocking people out.
Yeah, it does sound harsh.
But the deeper analysis from our source is fascinating. It suggests this isn't final exclusion, but actually, paradoxically, an invitation to lean in closer.
How can not seeing be an invitation? That seems contradictory.
It hinges on our response, on our agency, our desire. If you hear a parable, this riddle, and you feel that spark of curiosity, if you're humble enough to say, I don't get this, and hungry enough to ask for more, then the door is wide open.
So the not seeing isn't a wall built by God.
It's more like a self-selecting mechanism. If you're content with the surface or too proud to admit you need more, you just walk away. Your heart stays hardened to the deeper truth, not because God locked you out, but because you didn't knock, you didn't engage.
But if you feel that mystery, if you're willing to put in the effort,
then you're effectively invited to come closer, just like the disciples did. The parable acts as this test of receptivity, a call to the genuine seekers.
that has huge implications for how we learn anything important, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Think about it. The most valuable insights, the truly transformative knowledge in any field, it's rarely just handed to you on a plate, all neat and tidy.
No, you usually have to dig for it.
You have to pursue it actively. Ask hard questions. Wrestle with complexity. Sit with the confusion sometimes until things start to click. It changes how you approach any complex subject, be it science, philosophy, even difficult truths about yourself.
If you go in expecting it to be easy, effortless,
You probably won't get very far. But if you approach it with curiosity, humility, a real desire to understand, then the layers start to open up. It highlights this idea of intimacy in learning. Some truths really are reserved for those who genuinely seek them, who invest themselves in the process.
being a seeker, not just a passive receiver.
Exactly. And the transformation is often directly related to the depth of that seeking.
So, wrapping this all up for today, what's the big takeaway? It's clear Jesus' use of parables wasn't casual. It was incredibly deliberate, multi-layered, deeply intentional. We've seen they're way more than just simple moral tales. They act as these active filters, sorting listeners by their heart's posture. They are profound revealers of kingdom principles, unlocking these eternal truths about God's reality, things hidden since creation. And maybe most importantly, they aren't just about information. They're powerful invitations into personal transformation. They demand our effort, our reflection, and they foster this intimate engagement with truth. And the amazing thing is, this isn't just ancient history. These parables, they still speak today. The same stories continue to challenge, to invite, to reveal new layers.
Every story holds layers, every word a door.
That's a great way to put it, waiting for someone to knock.
Which brings us to one final, maybe most important